Hello, my friends. It's Matthew Street, and welcome to my channel. And I am back for another show and tell Beatles related video. Now, some of you may know that I have been or was assigned to the United States Air Force for a period of 6 years, from 1979 till 1985. 4 of those years active duty, 2 years in the reserves. Now, for over 2 of those years, I was assigned overseas in the United Kingdom at a base in East Anglia, Suffolk, near the town of Ipswich. Now, these were twin bases called RAF, Royal Air Force Bentwaters, and RAF Woodbridge. While I was there, one of my top priorities was to visit Beatles sites. I mean, obviously, if you're a Beatles fan, a young Beatles fan, as I was, getting there when I was 18, I had to get to Liverpool. I had to get to London. I wanted to take in as much as I could. Now, times were different back then. The Liverpool, as you know it today, that has gone very Beatles commercialized, as it were, was not like that on the visits that I made to Liverpool. And I went up there several times, maybe 3 times. It was the old Liverpool. It was Liverpool as the Beatles would have remembered Liverpool. There were no statues. There was no massive tourist attraction type things on Matthew Street. There was no museum by the docks or, all that good stuff that's there now, which is wonderful. And I hope to get back there one day to see all that cool new stuff that you can really take in, tours and walking tours, driving tours, and all that good stuff for Beatles folklore. I do hope to do that again one day. But when I was there, it wasn't like that. There was a couple of little things on Matthew Street. There was a little shop where you could buy some trinkets called the Beatles Shop. And within that Beatles shop, there was what was called the Cavern Mecca. It was a place where it was an information center, and they also produced a little fanzine for a short period of time. And that was really all there was in Liverpool. You could still go see the sites like Strawberry Fields, Penny Lane, and whatnot, but you basically were on your own, like just finding it, and then you would just go by it and take a picture, whatever. Well, anyway, I thought I'd start this video by showing some of my trinkets from that time period. Now, here is a photo album that I've had for over 40 years. And housed in this was my time in the Air Force in England. Big Ben. I threw these here just for a little color, just for a little imagery of the Beatles. But I do have a stack of pictures I took out of this album. I was going to try to show them in the album, but the photo album is so old, the stick-em on the back doesn't work anymore. They were sliding all over the place. So I thought I would do it this way and show you the images. Now, this first one, they're not in any particular order. This is Lime Street Station, I guess. When you first arrive, I took this image. Again, this is early 1981, this trip. I did go during 1980, right after I got there. But like any young kid at the time, I didn't have a camera or we didn't care, but we didn't have phone cameras then, so I took no pictures my first couple of trips. But on like the third trip, I made sure I brought a camera. And it was early 1981. That's our arrival to Liverpool. Again, no particular order, but when we got to Matthew Street, I went with a friend of mine named Mark, who was also in the Air Force, and he was a Beatles freak. We got to Matthew Street. This is basically what we found. You can see the parking lot over to your left. That's where the original cavern was. It was still a parking lot at the time. You can see it on the left where that sidewalk and those yellow pylons are like. You can see an old cavern sign up on the center of the picture, upper center. That was still there. I'll show you a close-up of that momentarily. But that's basically what Matthew Street looked like then, folks, when I went. Nothing like today. Here is that cavern sign that was still there on Matthew Street. I just found that so interesting that although it was a parking lot, they still had a sign up across the street on the building. This was still up on the wall at Matthew Street. This was like the only really monument, a memorial to the Beatles. Just said Beatles Street, Four Lads Who Shook the World with their initials, MJP. You know what I mean? Like, it was just very sparse, but I took an image of that. Now, when you went to the Cavern Mecca itself, or the Beatles shop, that was on 18 Matthew Street. So it was just up the street from the old cavern. And they did their best to produce a little mini museum with archways to pay tribute to the original cavern. So you can see that there on the left, one of the archways, and then all kinds of Beatles memorabilia on the walls. That's on Matthew Street at the time. I took that because I saw Beatles, and it was just after John Lennon had been taken from us, so you can see where R.I.P. John. I mean, I just found it to be something interesting to take a picture of. This is the famous, I believe, Queen Victoria Memorial in Liverpool. The Beatles had some great publicity pictures taken around this memorial back in the day, so we visited that. Again, didn't get pictures of everything as I wanted, but did the best I could with the technology of the time and the cheap camera I had. Again, inside the Beatles shop, the Cavern Mecca, which had a replica of the cavern and lots of Beatles images around. There's the faux archways they built in this little museum place. And it was the only thing there, folks. That was it. There was nothing much. If without that little shop and museum, there was nothing. That's my friend Mark on the train. He was from Ohio, big Beatles fan, was my roommate for a little while in the service, in the Air Force. And he came with me on the trips. Big Beatles guy. So that's him on the train getting there. Here's another one of the archways showing Beatle posters and whatnot at the Cavern Mecca Beatles shop. Here's a picture of Menlove Avenue where, geez, I don't even know if Mimi still lived there at the time. This was early 81. Could she have been? Maybe. Should I have knocked? I don't know. But I did take a picture of it at the time. This is me at Strawberry Field. Very dark, not a good picture, but you can make out myself and the sign Strawberry Fields at the gateway. That's what it looked like in early 81. We found a Penny Lane sign on Penny Lane, so we took a picture in front of it. That's Mark in front of it. Back inside Cavern Mecca. Beatles shop, very dark, but it gives you an idea of the memorabilia they had up on the walls there. It was the only really museum place. Took a picture at the roundabout on Penny Lane of the barber shop. That's what it looked like in 1981. This was up on the wall near where it said Four Lads Who Shook the World. I don't know how that's translating. I have two of them, so I don't know if one of them's better easily read by you. But you can try to freeze it if you want. Very difficult. I get it. You know, the old... that's not too bad. You might be able to freeze that. Okay, so I took a picture of that plaque. That's a young Matthew Street on the train heading to Liverpool. Had hair back then, folks. 18 years old. Or no, I was 19 at this point. 19. Mark at the Cavern Mecca Beatles shop at the faux stage of the cavern. That's all they had then. This is before they rebuilt it. And this was at 18 Matthew Street. Another closer view of that parking lot on the left with the cavern sign. That's Matthew Street as we saw it. What a shame on the left there, all that torn down and rubble. That's me in the bed and breakfast, getting ready to go see the sights. We stayed at a little bed and breakfast in Liverpool. Yeah, I had hair. These monuments are like down an alley behind a fence grate. That's why you see all those grid lines shadowing. You couldn't get near these things. They were just sitting down in like an alleyway. I think they were later used when they rebuilt the cavern. I think they're there now, right? These tall, big, they're like 5-6 feet high. I took a picture of it. Another view of Four Lads Who Shook the World. A little better image. The Cavern sign again from the other side. The view from the parking lot where the original cavern stood. I took this image across at what was, that's it. That's all that was there to recognize the Beatles. The plaque, Four Lads Who Shook the World, and the Cavern sign. And then the little Beatles shop with the Cavern Mecca. Me in the Cavern Mecca sitting in front of an old blanket. Just an image, closer image of the Beatles Shook the World and the plaque that I showed you earlier. Mark in the bed and breakfast we stayed at. A lot of our images are him taking one of me and me taking one of him doing the same thing. Me on the stage at the faux cavern. 18 Matthew Street. Image inside the Beatles shop. At the top of Matthew Street looking, I'm not sure which direction, but that's at the top of Matthew Street looking down the main drag. A stairwell up to the Beatles shop at 18 Matthew Street. I have no idea what this is, but I'll show it to you. Maybe you can identify that monument. I can't tell. Liverpool, so I can't tell. The Beatles shop, Cavern Mecca, inside, more memorabilia. Market, Strawberry Fields. Me at Penny Lane. Those monuments again, double. I believe this was John's Art College. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have notes in front of me, but I think that was the Art Institute, if I'm mistaken, where, is that where Paul then created the Liverpool School of Art? I could be wrong, folks. Again, I don't have notes on these, but you can help me with that. I haven't looked at these in so long. Again, the Queen Victoria Memorial that the Beatles took pictures at, and not a big deal picture, but another one of inside selling stuff, shirts at the Cavern Mecca Beatles shop. Now, just to show you some things from that, I bought some trinkets while I was in the Beatles shop. They didn't have a lot of memorabilia, but they had stuff like this. The Beatles shop, the first Beatles statue in Liverpool. Got this Beatles. You see that? Beatles pencil. Maybe move this stuff to the side here. That's hurting the focus. I'm not sure. All right, let me try it now. All right, there we go. The Beatles. The Beatles. Pencil. Got that in 1981 at the Beatles shop. I believe I got this at the Beatles shop. It's like a little, I don't know, something like a ninja thing you'd wear around your forehead and tie it in the back, I guess, or a banner. Cloth banner, silky. All right, got that there. Got this pen, Beatles Forever, Liverpool Centenary, 1980. Well, just a little pen from that era. I got this keychain there, nothing on the back, but Beatles keychain at the Beatles shop. I got this little patch at the Beatles shop. I got a switchblade. No, I got a pocket knife at the Beatles shop. Of all the things I picked up, I grabbed that. Nothing on the back, but Beatles pocket knife. Unique. I got a Beatles ruler to go with my Beatles pencil. It's clear, see-through. John Lennon, Paul, Beatles, George, faux signatures on this. It's in a plastic sleeve. And I've just kept it sealed all these years from the Beatles shop, early 80s. And a real cheap flag, you know, peeling away and stuff, but, you know, you could check that out. And also, I became a member of the Cavern Mecca while I was there. And I signed up to get newsletters like this. Now, they didn't last that long. It was a couple named Jim and Liz who ran the Cavern Mecca Club. And they were the ones running the information center on 18 Matthew Street at the time. And they created this fanzine that went all over the place, kind of like a Beatle fan, but it didn't last that long. And so, Jim and Liz, there they are. And I signed up for it while I was there, and I was getting these issues throughout 1981 and 82. I think this is an edition from 82. I'm sure I have others lying around somewhere stacked in piles of paper, but I just couldn't locate them. But I thought I'd show you one. Oh, there's the original archway of the cavern being destroyed. Oh, isn't that wonderful? Hindsight is 20/20, right? Sad. So check that out. There's things for you to see, and this was a fanzine. So yeah. All right, and there's those things. But when I saw them, they were, oh, that's right. They were in the 81, they were in that alley. And then when this picture was taken, this is 82 now, they moved them into the Cavern Mecca, that museum, and they must have used them for a display. And then later they were used in the rebuilding of the cavern. And here's my official membership card. I'm number 483, lifetime member of Cavern Mecca. Now, the one unique thing, and I'll let you go while I was there, was while I was there with Mark on that visit in 1981, a film crew was there doing an interview with Bob Wooler on that faux stage of the cavern, the one we took our pictures on, and they were interviewing him. And this was going to be interviews used for the Complete Beatles, which came out in late 82 or something like that. We were there in 81, so it came out, 82. So Bob Wooler was there, and Alan Williams was also there hanging around with Bob. Now, I didn't have the foresight to get a picture with Alan or with Bob Wooler, but I did meet both of them and talk to them, and Alan was very nice to Mark and I. And we were able to have him sign copies, hardcover copies of his book, The Man Who Gave the Beatles Away. An interesting read put out by Alan Williams. Right there, Alan, the first manager of the Beatles. Lots of great pictures and stuff in here. He signed it. All right. I should have known better. Best wishes, Alan Williams. So Alan should have known better, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, folks, that's it. I've gone like 18 minutes already, and I know it's a long one, but I thought you'd enjoy seeing this stuff. My time in England, in Liverpool, at Cavern Mecca, in the Beatles shop. Bye-bye.